My daughter-in-law looked me dead in the eye and told me her entire family would be spending Christmas at my house. All 30 of them. I smiled, took a sip of my coffee, and told her that sounded absolutely perfect. Then I told her I was flying to Aspen for the holidays, and she could cook and clean for 30 people herself, because I am not her servant. The color drained from her face. But the real surprise, the one that would leave her and my son completely broke and homeless, was still to come. My name is Bruce, I'm 71, and for 40 years I worked as a structural engineer. I built bridges, high-rises, parking garages. I know how to calculate weight, anticipate stress, and recognize exactly when a foundation is about to crumble. My wife Diane and I built our dream home in a quiet suburb outside Columbus, Ohio. She passed away 7 years ago, leaving me with a house full of memories and a peace I guarded carefully. That peace ended 3 years ago when my son Colin and his wife Vanessa showed up with a sob story about rent and a moving truck. Colin is 34, my only child, and somewhere along the way I failed to give him a backbone. Vanessa is 32, obsessed with appearances and a lifestyle she cannot afford. They asked for 6 months to save a deposit. 6 months turned into 3 years and they never once acted like guests. I'm up every morning at 5, coffee brewed, house respected. Vanessa never surfaces before 10, and when she does, her dripping coffee mug goes straight onto Diane's antique mahogany table, no coaster, no thought. Then Colin rolled up in an $80,000 SUV, claiming it was a work bonus. 2 days later I found the truth in the post. He'd drained the $30,000 emergency account I'd opened for him at 18, the one meant for real crises to cover the lease. I didn't shout. I folded the statement, locked it in my safe, and quietly reclassified my son from someone who needed guidance to a liability I'd be dealing with. Weeks later Vanessa threw an impromptu dinner party, blasting music through my house, and marched into my study to order me down to the cellar to fetch wine for her guests like hired help. I fetched it in silence. The next morning I found my dead wife's Persian rug soaked in spilled red wine, dishes crusted in the sink, and I got down on my knees and cleaned it myself before anyone woke up. That wasn't submission. That was me quietly sharpening a blade. Then came the dinner that changed everything. Vanessa announced casually that she'd offered to host her entire extended family for Christmas. 30 people flying in for a week. Before I could respond, she slid a thick, multi-page shopping list across the table: prime ribs from a boutique butcher, imported cheeses, truffles for cases of $100 champagne, a $5,000 bill she expected me to quietly pay because she was too busy with the decor. Then came the real blow. Her parents needed the master suite, my bedroom, the one I'd shared with Diane for 40 years, because the guest rooms weren't suitable. I was to take the pull-out couch in the freezing, unfinished basement, on a mattress with a broken spring digging into the back. I looked at my son, giving him one last chance to grow a spine. He stared at his plate and mumbled, "It's only for a week, Dad." Those 7 words ended whatever obligation I still felt toward him. I smiled, agreed to everything, and walked calmly to my study. I did not touch my checkbook. Instead I picked up the phone and called Stanley, my estate attorney, a man who'd been telling me for 3 years to cut Colin off. "You were right about the boy," I told him. "Draft the severance. We're tearing the whole thing down." Over the next 2 weeks, while Vanessa believed I was quietly obeying, I dismantled everything. I revoked Colin's access to every joint account, killing the safety net he'd leaned on his entire adult life. I found Vanessa's supplementary card had funded designer shoes, spa days, everything but groceries, and instead of canceling it outright I programmed a hard decline on any charge over $50, time to trigger the exact week she'd go on her big holiday shop. Then, using the decluttering excuse Vanessa herself had handed me, I spent days swapping out everything of real value: Diane's jewelry, our paintings, the silverware, for cheap thrift store replacements, quietly moving 40 years of our real life into a locked storage unit across town while the house kept its hollow facade. Meanwhile Stanley delivered the real weapon. A developer had been chasing my double lot for years to build luxury condos, and I signed on one condition. Closing would land on the 26th of December, so I'd legally own the house through Christmas, but the utilities, gas, water, electricity, would transfer to the developer's corporate account and shut down completely on the 23rd, standard protocol for a property slated for demolition. No heat, no water, no way for Colin or Vanessa to fix it, because they'd have no legal standing to even call the utility company. 2 days before the family descended, I calmly told Vanessa I'd take care of her final grocery list, drove off, withdrew travel cash, and had a quiet lunch instead. That evening I walked down the stairs with a packed suitcase. Vanessa froze mid-decorating, asking where the groceries were. I told her exactly what I'd told her in that first line. I was going to Aspen, and she could cook and clean for her own family because I am not her servant. My car was already waiting outside. I didn't look back. From my hotel that night, I watched her card decline twice at the till in front of a queue of wealthy holiday shoppers, forcing her to max out her own personal cards to save face. 48 hours later, 30 relatives descended on a house with a dead credit line, dwindling supplies, and a hostess unraveling by the hour. Her father found nothing but cheap supermarket wine in the bar. Her mother ran a finger along dusty skirting boards. The illusion Vanessa had spent days building cracked in real time in front of the very people she wanted to impress. Then came the 23rd. At the stroke of the hour, the heating died, the water ran ice cold, the lights went dark, the fridge full of overpriced meat and cheese went silent. Colin went down to the breaker box and found nothing wrong because nothing was broken. The account simply didn't belong to us anymore. He rang the utility company and was told, flatly, that the property was now owned by a commercial developer and flagged for demolition, and no service would ever be restored to that address. When Vanessa finally got me on the phone, shrieking about a bank error, I told her the truth in one calm sentence. I'd sold the house weeks ago in cash and I had no legal authority to fix anything. You demanded the house for the holidays, I said. I gave it to you. Try not to freeze. Then I blocked both their numbers. On Christmas Eve, right on schedule, a property manager and 2 security guards arrived to conduct the pre-demolition walkthrough and found the house full of unauthorized people. Vanessa answered the door wrapped in a sleeping bag, lips blue from the cold, and was told, in front of her entire family crowding the hallway behind her, that she and Colin were trespassing on a condemned commercial site with exactly 24 hours to leave before police were called. Her own father, who'd spent months bragging to his friends about his daughter's beautiful estate, turned on her in disgust, realizing in real time he'd been boasting about a lie. Within the hour, the whole family was booking their own ride shares to a hotel, abandoning Vanessa mid-sentence as she begged them to stay. Her mother, in the doorway, delivered the final blow, told her daughter she'd humiliated the entire family, and that she and Colin were not to contact them for money, not now, not for the rest of the holidays. By nightfall, the driveway was empty, the house was dark, and my son and his wife were alone in a freezing, condemned building with maxed out cards and 23 hours left on the clock. A week later, from a beach chair in Aspen, I finally took Colin's call. He was in a cheap motel off the interstate, engine noise and sirens in the background, Vanessa crying behind him, begging me to wire money so they wouldn't lose their car too. I let him finish, then told him plainly, my job as his personal bank account ended the moment he let his wife order me into a basement in my own home. I told him to get a job, any job, and that this was the last time we'd speak. Then I blocked his number for good. A month later, I'm sitting on the balcony of a beachfront penthouse on the Gulf Coast, paid for outright in cash from the sale, coffee in hand, Diane's photo on the table beside me. No dripping mugs on bare wood, no wine stains, no shouting, no cold. Just quiet. Some people might say selling that house was a betrayal of her memory. I'd say the opposite. Diane and I didn't spend 40 years building something just so it could be looted by 2 people who never once said thank you. I protected our life's work by walking away from the people trying to strip it for parts. If there's one thing worth taking from all this, it's that unconditional love was never meant to mean unconditional funding. Real family runs on respect and gratitude, not entitlement and guilt. And sometimes the kindest thing you can do for a grown child and for yourself is to stop rescuing them and let real life teach the lesson you never could.